This is The Clash, where the real world clashes with a true Christian worldview. Join former professional wrestler Chris Whaley, known as the Masked Saint, who is an author, pastor, and teacher that brings his wrestling skills into the squared circle and tackles real-life issues. Along with Jeff Dixon, best-selling author, internationally known teacher, leader, and pastor who is not afraid to tackle the tough issues of the world we live in. Together they form a tag team of wisdom in The Clash.
Welcome to The Clash, where we take a Christian worldview and allow it to collide with the world that we live in. My name is Jeff Dixon. I'm joined by
Chris Whaley.
And over the next couple minutes, we're going to continue a conversation, an interview we had with a good friend of ours. And so, Chris, tell us who we're getting ready to talk to and what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, we had a great interview with American GI Richie Scruggs, and it turned into more than one interview. So we split it into two. We showed part one last week, and this is part two of our interview with Richie Scruggs. And it's an important one because this coming Saturday is going to be the first pro wrestling on Abundant TV, and Richie is a big part of that. And you'll hear more about that in this interview.
Hi. Thanks for not leaving during the break because, well, I'm obviously trying to get you to buy something. I really am. If you're anything like me, middle of summer, sometimes it gets really hot. We film here in Florida. It's hot all the time. And every once in a while, you'd like to take a little bit of a break. Get a little Christmas spirit going in your life. If so, I have a suggestion for you. I have written a novella based upon the characters that show up in my novels. It's called Then Christmas Happens. It's available in the exclusive paperback edition, the collectible hardback edition, or if you're lazy like I am and you want someone to read to you, you can also get this book on Audible in about an hour and 10, 15 minutes. Hear it, read it, and get a little Christmas magic happening in your life. To get it, you have to go to Amazon, look up my name, Jeff Dixon, and then let Christmas happen in your life. Tell us, let's shift gears a little bit, because tell us how you got involved with Wrestling for Christ, or Wrestlers for Christ.
I got saved back in 1988. Didn't start wrestling until 1990. So I tell people all the time, I'm a Christian who just happens to wrestle. So been involved in the church, been involved in wrestling about the same amount of time. Well, 2008, I had an opportunity to go to the Philippines on my first missions trip, and never been anywhere, never done any type of missions work. And I can tell you when I met the people, the Filipino people and the pastors and the families over there, I fell in love with that country. And that's where my heart is. That's where my heart is today. But I was sitting, I guess one of our local pastors that I traveled with had told one of the ladies behind the desk at the hotel that I was a professional wrestler. So he said, there's a match on there, and it might have been the One Man Gang, or it might have been Jimmy Snuka, but she's like, look this up. And so I'm sitting there with a group of young pastors, and before I know it, there's a crowd of Filipinos watching this computer, and they're all looking at me. And I'm like, man, what have I done? What have I said? There's something's going on. And then one of them says, is this you? And when I go back around and look at the computer, they're watching me on YouTube wrestling. And the local pastor said, you go by the American GI? And I said, yeah. And they said, does that stand for God's image? GI? And I was like, wow, I never thought about that. I've never was in the military. My father served for almost 30 years. And the American GI character was in honor of my dad. Just to honor his legacy for all the years he served. But that's how I started using wrestling in the Philippines. And I've traveled over there every year since, been 20-something trips. I've not even took time to count, but some years I went 2 times, but I always used the American GI, and I've always used wrestling as a way to share the gospel in the Philippines. And it just draws those kids in. So anytime I'm over there, I carry the belt. And it just draws me in. And it's one of the poorest countries in the world. So if I can offer something as far as myself and wrestling to bring a smile to somebody's face, I do it. And that's what I do. And not just there, I do it here too. But man, it's amazing what it does in the Philippines.
Richie,
I think with
Yeah, tell
yes.
that story. I've heard it, but I think our audience would really be touched by the story of the guy in the shoes. You know what I'm talking?
Oh, something told me, man, guys, I apologize. See, I'm already starting to tear up. This is a country that has nothing. I mean, really. The churches that I work with over there, they go to church 6, 7 days a week. I mean, they have church on Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. They have a meet and greet, door knocking on Saturdays. They have youth activities on Monday and Tuesdays. They go to the senior citizens village on Thursday and Friday. So they walk the soles off of their shoes. And I was working with a young local pastor over there and noticed his shoes were taped up. He had tape on the bottom. I think he might have even had cardboard in them where he was filling in the holes. And I just told him, I said, hey, let's go get you a pair of shoes. And guys, these are guys like I would take them to McDonald's to eat, and we'd walk in the restaurant, and they would stand back at the door and just kind of look around. And I said, brother, you going to order? And he's like, I don't know what you do here. And I said, you've never been to McDonald's? And they said, no, we can't afford to go to McDonald's. And they can't. So long story short is I take this young man's shoe shop, and I told him, I said, you pick out any pair of shoes you want. And he ended up picking out a nice pair of dress shoes. And I didn't think anything about it, and I really didn't. It had been a couple of days, and a lot of areas I'm in over there, I don't have internet. But I remember a couple of days later, I talked to my wife, and she said, "Did you see Pastor So-and-so's Facebook page?" And I said, "No." Here's where I get choked up, guys, and I'm sorry. I said, "No, I've not had a chance to look at it yet." And she said, "Well, get on there and look. I just want you to see this." So I click on his Facebook page, and it says, "This is the greatest day of my life. I got a new pair of shoes." Guys, when my kids get their shoes dirty, they want to toss them out. Well, they used to. They don't now, but we discard clothes and shoes. But he said this was the greatest day of my life. I got my first new pair of shoes. Guys, it's just amazing, just amazing. But Wrestling for Christ started. That's how it started. I can't even remember what the question was now. I get so
That's all right. Well, no, well, the thing about it is, I mean, I know from our cultural backgrounds, right? I mean, we've got a lot more shoes than we've got feet, and so it's hard for most of our viewers to understand that. I mean, there are people in the world that, I mean, they just don't have that one pair.
Well, right. The average
and that's
the average family of 4 over there makes $100 US a month. And they are the happiest people. And it's because they don't know what they're missing out on. I tell people all the time, especially if it's the first time ever visiting with me, they'll say, "Man, I've never seen people smile as much as these Filipinos do." And I said, "Guys, they're not spoiled. They appreciate everything they've got, and they don't realize they're not missing out on anything. They're blessed with everything that God's given them, and they appreciate every hour of every day." The kids are up at the crack of dawn playing till dark. They're outside. They don't have the video games. They don't have the technologies that we have. And it kind of reminds me of when I was growing up back in the 80s. We didn't have the video. We stayed outside till Dad whistled for us to come home. Well, that's the way it is there. That's the way it is there. They appreciate everything they've got. And it's just something that we've lost here in America. We are spoiled. I mean, we are a spoiled nation compared to,
Well, now WFC, Wrestling for Christ, is going to have a weekly wrestling program on Abundant TV.
Yes, sir.
So tell us when this is going to start and when will it be showing on Abundant TV?
Well, we've actually been working on that for the last couple of months with some of the guys from the network, and you as well, Brother Chris, have been helping us with this. And we've had TV crews traveling with us at all of our little venues, and we are actually doing what they're billing it as the King of the Mountain match for the WFC heavyweight title on July 27th in Kings Mountain. Camera crews will be there, and that show will air August the 17th on the Abundant TV network. And we are so excited. We are so excited. It's going to be called the Saturday Night Praise and Power Hour. Guys, what I love about WFC, and I'm not putting us over anybody else's federation. I'm not that guy. But what I love about the WFC is every show that we do, we bring in a local pastor. We have 2 matches typically, and then the pastor comes out, and I just tell the pastor, I'm like, Pastor, you just, whatever the Lord lays on your heart. If you want to talk about your church, if you want to preach a message, if you want to do just share your testimony, if you want to do all 3, you do that. So we have a local pastor at every show that shares the gospel, shares the testimony, and then we continue with our wrestling show. We usually put on 5 matches, and but it's all faith-based. My guys, and I've got some great talent. I've got guys that's been in the WCW, WWF, George South. Everybody in the world knows Mr. Number One, George South. I've got several guys that's been on TV, and then we bring in guys. We use guys all the time that's got a lot of background in the business. But we come out to we try to come out to the instrumentals, so we don't have to worry about any other language in some of the music that's used, any of the sexual innuendos that's used in today's music. And there again, to each his own. That's just what Wrestling for Christ Ministries tries to do. And we put on 1 show a month at our home base, but we travel throughout the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida. We travel all over putting on Wrestling for Christ events, and it's a lot of the proceeds go towards our trips to the Philippines. We travel over there every year. Me and my group of guys, we travel over there, and the proceeds from a lot of our shows covers that expense. And that's an expensive trip. Just last year alone, it was $15,000 just an airline to go. But Lord has just always provided. He's always provided. And the guys that work for me, they know that's where our money's going, and we put it in an account, and we go over there. And I'm gonna tell you the story real quick too about Wrestling for Christ. I'd said earlier that I'd been traveling over to the Philippines since 2008. Well, one of the local pastors knew that I wrestled, of course, and he came to the United States and was raising support for his church and came to one of our events. And he brought his tape measure and his notepad. And it was funny. One of the guys in the locker room said, "Who's that little fella out there looking up underneath the ring?" And I said, "Guys, he's with me. He's a local pastor from the Philippines." Kind of like that movie, Field of Dreams. He had asked me, he said, "Brother Richie, if I build a ring, will you come?" And I said, "Brother, if you build us a ring, we'll all come over there." So in 2017, we actually held our first Wrestling for Christ event in Tarlac City, Philippines, in front of 15,000 people. And when I say 15,000, there was probably about 10,000 in the venue. It was an outdoor venue. And while we were wrestling, you could look above the wall, and they were standing on the rooftops. They were up in the trees. So we figured it was close to 15,000. And I think on that day alone, we had 2,000 accept Christ. So it works. It works. And we've been traveling over there every year since, putting on events. We wrestled 10 shows in 6 days this last trip over there, and saw 2,500 come to know the Lord. We do the same thing over there. We have a match or 2. I'll share. One of my other guys will share. And then the local Filipino pastor will share in their native tongue, just so everybody understands better. And we have church. It's wrestling, but some people preach, Brother Jeff, you and Pastor Chris. Some people preach to share the gospel. Some people sing to share the gospel. I just happen to wrestle to share the gospel, and it works. You hear people all the time say, "How does wrestling and sharing the gospel work?" And I just invite them to one of our shows. I said, "Please just come check out one of our shows." Well, I don't want to see people out there half naked. My grandma told me years ago, she came to an event, and one of the guys had on his little wrestling trunks, and nothing against that. I know that's what sells. But my grandma told me after the event, she said, "Hon, if I ever see you wrestling your underwear, I will never support you again." Well, I wear combat fatigues and Ranger vests, but Wrestling for Christ, we don't wear full clothes. The guys wear their tights, but we don't wear trunks, and my guys always wear their shirts. I just don't want to upset that one person. I don't want to scare that one person away that doesn't like seeing anything like that. We don't curse in the ring. We don't do any vulgar gestures in the ring. Everything's family friendly, from the music to the wrestling to the preaching to the concession stand. It is a wholesome family product. and it works, and it continues to work today. And that's why I'm tickled to death that Abundant TV has offered to let us have a show. And as far as I know, it may be the first faith-based wrestling program on a national TV network.
Sure.
And August 17th, you can get on the Roku channel, Apple TV, your smartphone, and you can download that app. And on Saturday nights at 6 o'clock, you will see professional wrestling along with preaching. To me, it goes hand in hand.
That's fantastic.
Well, Richie, if you know, a pastor watching this or a local church or organization would like to have Wrestling for Christ come to their town and do a show at their church or at their community, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, Brother Chris, they can go to my Wrestling for Christ Facebook page. It's they'll notice the pictures as soon as they get on it. It'll have a picture of the Filipino kids, and they can contact us through that. They can private message me, and it's not, guys. It's not just, we don't just do it for the Philippines. I mean, a lot of our home shows, we do raise our support that way, but we raise money for cancer patients. We raise money for children that's been in accidents. There's just all kinds of ways, but what a great way to reach a crowd, not just young. I mean, wrestling's for people of all ages. And I tell people all the time, we will wrestle for them, and then we'll get the local pastors to wrestle with their hearts. And it works. But yeah, you can reach out to Wrestling for Christ on social media, hit me up. We never, and I can honestly say this, we never let money stop us from running a show. I know a lot of pastors will say, Brother Richie, what will it cost? We do have a flat rate that we charge, but if the pastor was to say, Brother Richie, we're a small church, we don't have that, and I said, well, we're not going to let that stop us. If you're going to allow us to come wrestle and share the gospel, we'll come. And we want to do that. That's who we are, and that's what we do. My guys we don't wrestle for a living, which makes it easy. All of the guys that work for me, I've got school teachers, I've got auto mechanics, I've got plumbers, everybody that works for us on the Wrestling for Christ team all have regular 40-hour-a-week jobs. So we don't let the wrestling and not getting paid scare us. There is a ministry there that we're supporting, and most churches do understand that. But we've never put a price tag on what we do. I don't think you can. I don't think you can charge somebody for salvation. It's free. I mean, I'm not going to let a pastor say, well, we can't afford that. Well, we're not going to let that. You tell me when you want us to be there. And if it has to be a love offering, we will take up a love offering. But we're coming to wrestling. We're coming to share the gospel. And it's just that easy. It's just that easy.
That's exciting. Richie, we're thrilled to death. I'm thrilled to death that you're going to be on Abundant TV, because that will introduce folks that have never had the opportunity to see you, see your troupe. Man, I mean, I just think the sky is the limit for how God is going to use you guys in the days ahead and how He's going to bless that. And so I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled that to be associated with you, but also thrilled for what's getting ready to happen and how that's all going to unfold. And so, you keep us in mind. We want to be a part of it too, and we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to encourage you guys and help.
I've told our pastors, that's the first thing I say, hey, listen, this is liable to be recorded and be on TV. And they said, brother, put me on TV.
There you go.
I'll share the gospel on TV. I'll share the gospel wherever. And, I bring in, like I said, and it's not just local, brother. Like I said, Brother Chris has been one of my speakers at one of our events before. And then he's preached at my church. And so it's not just, I said local, it's not just local pastors. Sure. Brother Jeff, if you're ever down this way on a weekend and we're running a show, brother, I'll put you in the ring with a mic and you just preach your heart out.
Well, you tell a preacher he can be on TV. I mean, that's like candy on Halloween, right? I mean, you just got to go. I mean, that's that's a no-brainer.
This is something new. I'm not sure who we're going to reach or the numbers we're going to reach, but it's a TV station, so I know somebody's going to watch it, regardless of the numbers. We just want to provide a good family-friendly wrestling show, and it is, guys. It is. Like I said, I've got some of the greatest Christian men working with me that love the Lord. I've seen them. They've been in the Philippines with me. I took a married couple with us this past year. He was our referee, and she was going just to be our camera person, Miss Lana, and she's a beautician, and they found out about that. And I don't know how many heads of hair she cut. We wrestled for the indigenous tribe in Dingalan, Aurora. And when I say indigenous tribe, we set the ring up on top of a mountain. And I asked the local pastor, I said, "Preacher, what's behind here? What's down in the jungle there?" And he said, "We don't know. Nobody's ever traveled down into that. It's just, they don't speak a language or anything. They're just Filipino indigenous people." Well, brother, I'm telling you, we set that ring up and they started playing music, and we saw them coming up through the jungle just to watch us wrestle. And then one of the local guys had told some of the guys hadn't had haircuts in years. And sure enough, Miss Lana brought her clippers and her scissors, and they were lined up and down the mountain getting haircuts. So it doesn't have to be about wrestling for us. Sure. You know, that was just something that we did, that she did. Our referee just brought big bag loads of candy, and everybody just started calling him the Candy Man. To see a child that has never seen a gumball or Bubblicious or anything, just open it for the first. And that's hard to believe that there's people that's never had a Jolly Rancher. But to go over there and have a little kid put his hand out and you put a Jolly Rancher in it, and him just look at it and look at you like, what am I supposed to do with this? And then you open one and put it in your mouth, and then you watch that little boy or little girl open it, put it in their mouth, and just see the smile. We did that one time, guys, and it was just to a handful of young people. And we brought a couple of bags of candy, and 15 minutes later, they were coming out of the woodwork to get those Jolly Ranchers. Okay. Something they've never had, something that simple. Be able to talk to a little boy or a little girl in their native tongue with a local pastor, and just giving a little piece of candy to start that conversation is just amazing. We don't think about that here, but it happens over there.
Well, Richie, it's been great to have you.
Yeah, I mean, God's using you in a powerful way. Yeah. We're thrilled. We're thrilled that you spent this time with us. Thrilled that our audience can get a chance to hear about what you're doing and what's getting ready to come along down the road here. These are going to be good days.
I think it is, guys. We've been in prayer for that. I really do. I think it's going to be a good time. I'm so glad you guys are involved. I've been sharing the Clash with everybody that I know. I met a couple at a restaurant the other day and showed them how to download the Abundant TV app on their phone. It doesn't have to be about wrestling for me. It could be, you guys' show was great. Me and my wife was watching it the other night, and she just looked at Chris and you, Brother Jeff, and said, "Those guys are good at what they do." God put you guys in this place for a reason, and this is what we're doing, guys. And I think it's going to work. I really do.
Yeah. Well, we're excited about it.
Well, Richie, I think I was going to ask you what's your message to the audience before we say goodbye to you.
I honestly believe, and this is what Wrestling for Christ stands for, to save the lost at all cost. Whatever the Lord wants me to do. If we go over there and we don't put on one wrestling show in the Philippines, or we go to a local church here in the States and they don't want wrestling, but they want us to help paint a building or dig a ditch, I don't care what it is, in order to get the gospel out there. I just honestly believe to go into all corners of the world and share the gospel, and that's what we're doing. And we may have an opportunity to go to the UK now through Abundant TV, of all things. We've got a fella from the UK that wants us to come over there and put on a Wrestling for Christ event. So God's just opening so many doors, and that's what our message is, just to share the gospel and reach as many people as we can.
Yeah, make sure you take me on that trip to the UK. Make sure you take me.
Oh, that'll be awesome. The mask thing makes a comeback.
There you go.
Hey, do I have just a second? I was going to tell you, we were on our cruise last year. Brother Chris wasn't with us, but we were in the Grand Turks Island. And of course, I had on my my Masked Saint t-shirt, and it was probably 50 yards or more away. A guy had seen me walk by, and I heard him holler. He's like, "The Masked Saint. That was a great movie." I have no clue. Out in the Grand Turk Islands, some guy had seen it and said he had watched the movie, and so there's all kinds of ways of sharing the gospel. Sometimes we don't know what we're going to do or how we're going to reach them, but just that shirt, that guy had watched a Christian-based wrestling movie, and I knew it because he hollered at me in front of hundreds of people out there at the shopping center.
That's exciting.
That's just great.
And for me, it's tough. It's tough sitting here next to Chris because we don't have to use lights in the studio or anything. He's so brilliant. He shines so brilliantly. It just lights us all up. So we're good to go. So
we love Chris, and me and my wife's already planned another trip in October. We're coming back to Florida, and
good deal.
We know that me and Chris and Miss Verna and hopefully Casey and the grandbabies are going to get to spend some time together, and Man, and Brother Jeff, you too. If we're down there that Sunday, you'll see us at church.
Look forward to it.
We'll come to church with y'all again. We loved it the last time we were there, and man, it's just amazing how God works things out. And a couple of years ago, I didn't have a clue who you guys were, and now here we are, and we're brothers in Christ, and we're all headed towards the same goal. And now we're going to working for the same Abundant TV network. And who would have thought? I mean, really,
Yeah.
God knew. God knew. Nothing's ever occurred to him. So he's got us.
Yeah, he does. Well,
God bless
Richie,
you,
thank
Richie.
you, man. It's been awesome. It's fun. Look forward to seeing you next go around here, okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you, guys. And God bless you both. And let's just keep moving forward with this.
Hey, I'm Chris Whaley. I went from professional wrestling for 10 years, wrestling some of the biggest names in the business, 4 world champions. And I left the wrestling world to become a pastor. And I wrote a book about that transition because when I became a pastor, I found out that there were some people being abused and people being mistreated. And I ended up dealing with some people more as a professional wrestler than I did as a pastor. And I wrote a book about that transition called The Masked Saint. And it's available along with my other book, which is Harold's Heavenly Christmas. If you like Christmas stories, you're going to love this one, and one day it's going to be a movie. And then my last book is Mr. President. Has 2 lives, a comedian and the world heavyweight wrestling champion. And it is a great read. What a great interview, Jeff.
It's great, yeah.
I mean, I just enjoyed that so much. I guess because of my professional wrestling background, but as I listened to Richie, there's a couple of things came to my mind, but the big one was, there's a lot of people in this world that are wrestling with life right now.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. What would you say about that?
I go back, not to get hyper spiritual here, but hey, in Ephesians 6:12 it says this. It says, "We don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual host of wickedness in the heavenly places." The Bible doesn't duck the topic either.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that sometimes we lose out on the fact that when Paul writes that, the word wrestle, that word was so big because wrestling was a blood sport back in the 1st century, to the death very often. And so that one verse reminds us that, God isn't ducking the topic of how life is going to be. It's going to be tough.
Absolutely.
The verbiage is important. The way that he says it's important. We get nervous if things get tough. And we don't have to be nervous because he's with us. He fights alongside of us, and he helps carry us through. But it's real.
Right.
And we have to be aware of it, but we also don't have to be afraid of it.
Right.
We just have to be willing to get in the ring and go.
And we know that we're in a battle every day, wrestling with something in our lives. And just remember, when you're wrestling with life, don't tap out.